Another edition of family history that we're doing to share this history. I'm learning it and sharing it with my family, and I'm also sharing it with you guys, so because I think that we have this total misconception of some of the history that's being taught or not being taught to us. So my daughter wanted me to talk about what we call mulattoes, or what they call mulattoes back at a certain time, which we talked about in the previous video, the last 30 minutes, which were mulattoes. And Virginia at one point were considered to be Indian and a Negro, and in South Carolina it was a product of a white and a Negro. So depending on where you were, mulatto could mean different things. But we're going to talk about the difference, or why we think that these in society today, that the lighter skinned people have a more privileged, I guess, that. So why people want to take on this image of being considered the blonde, long, flowing hair, and the cosmetic surgery that some people get, and some of the things that we do. But then on the other side of that, we also do things that make us look more Hottentot, like Sarah Bartman and stuff like that. So we'll just focus on basically what women do to try to make themselves, what people classify as making themselves look more white, and that may come from these laws and things that were created, because as we still see under this time right now, that white is right, and they always have the upper class more than the African American, American Indian, and other classes. So let's get right to this. So we're going to talk about some of these laws that were written, and these laws that were written to make you think some of these things in the words that they say. Okay, so we're going to start off with in Virginia in 1662, whereabout some doubts are arisen whether children got by an Englishman upon a Negro shall be a slave or free. Be it therefore enacted and declared by this present Grand Assembly that all children born in this country shall be held bound or free according to the law condition of the mother. Okay, so right here in this in 1662, if you didn't catch what I said, it said an Englishman upon a Negro. At some point, this Englishman will become a white man, and that will show a difference in the way that people changed in the way that they're thinking, because Englishmen were considered to be superior to the Irish, which Irish came over here as indentured servants. They were the first indentured, those were the class of white people, the Irish and Scottish, that came over as indentured servants. Okay, so a law enacted in Maryland in 1664 to whatever freeborn English woman shall intermarry with any slave, shall serve the master of such slave during the life of her husband, and that the issue of such freeborn woman so married shall be slaves as their fathers were. Now, in 1664, we're talking about indentured servitude. We haven't gotten into where it is chattel slavery yet. In 1682, it is enacted that all servants which shall be imported into this country by sea or land, whether Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or Indians, whose percentage of native countries are not Christian at the time of their first purchase by some Christian, and all Indians which shall be sold in the neighboring by our neighboring Indians, or any trafficking with us for slaves, are hereby adjudged, deemed, and taken to be slaves in all intent of purpose by law, usage, and custom of the contrary notwithstanding. 1705, all servants imported into the country who are not Christians in their native country shall be accounted as slaves. All Negro, mulatto, Indians, slaves with this dominion shall be held as real estate. Okay. So we're going to leave that one right there and go on to while we're talking about these. So we talked about this Christian thing right here. So while we're talking about that, let me just throw this little one Bible verse in here. Peter 2, 2:18, a good slave is a good Christian. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, just as you would obey Christ. Okay.
So if you was if you wanted to be a good Christian, you had to be a good slave.
Yeah, but that didn't account for anything because it didn't make you free at any or anything. Because we're gonna go to these colonial laws of South Carolina that declares all Negroes and Indians. This is the Act of 1740. So we were reading laws that were before then, and it's 1600. So we moved to 1740. Declares all Negroes and Indians, free Indians in immunity with the government, Negroes, mustachos, and mestizos who are now free accepted to be slaves. The offsprings to follow the condition of the mother, and that such slaves are chattel personal. Under the provision of this uniform, we have the color of primo facie evidence that the party bearing the color of a Negro, mulatto, and mestizos is a slave, but the same prima facie results does not follow from an Indian color. Indians in the sense of Indians are regarded as free Indians in immunity until the contrary is shown. In the second provision of Section 1, Act 740, it is declared that every Negro, Indian, mulatto, and mestizo is a slave unless the contrary can be made to appear. Yet in the same it is immediately thereafter provided, the Indians in immunity with the government accepted, in which the burden of proof shall lie in the defendant, that is, on the person claiming the Indian plaintiff to be a slave. This later clause as a proviso is regarded as furnishing the rule, the race of slave Indians or of Indians not in immunity to government or extinct, and hence the previous part of the proviso no application. Section 4, the term Negro is confined to African slaves. So, the term Negro is defined to African slaves. So, we still call ourselves Negroes. We're not African slaves. The ancient Berbers at that. So, African slaves, there were ancient Berbers and their descendants. So, are we descendants of ancient Berbers? It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, the Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as Lascar. So it's saying Egyptians were here in North America. The Moors were here in North America. And the Negro Asiatics were here. Because why would they put this here unless they were here? It's documented. We'll have to find them. It was a bunch of people here that they don't classify as separate, because they come up with this whole rule as classifying everyone as Negro, which is now classified as African American. Okay? Mulatto is the issue of a white and a Negro. These are the slave laws, the Negro laws from South Carolina. When the mulatto ceases and the party bearing some slight taint of the African blood ranks as white is a question for the solution of the jury. So, what does that say? So it's saying if I could pass as a mulatto and I may, I'm so light that they can have a jury say whether I could be classified as white or as a Negro. So whenever the African taint is so removed that upon inspection a party may be fairly pronounced to be white, as such as his or her previous reception into society, and enjoyment of the privileges usually enjoyed by white people, the jury may rate and regard the party as white. So if I live with white people and I hang out with white people, I can be white. There you go.
And you was light enough.
Yeah, because it had to be, it said by the jury. So they had to look at me and say, if I was light enough to pass for white, right. No specific rule as to the quantity of Negro blood, which is to compel a jury to find one to be a mulatto, has been opted. Between 1/4 and 1/8 seems fair as a debatable ground. When the ground is reduced to 1/8, the jury ought always find the party white. When the blood is 1/4 or more African, the jury might find the party mulatto. The question of color and, of course, of caste. See, that's two different things. So we're talking about caste is like where you're low class, middle class, high class, that's what we would call caste in our society, arises in various ways and may, in some cases, be decided without the intervention of a jury. As when a party is convicted and brought up to sentence, or a witness to stand objected to as a free Negro, mulatto, and mestizo in these cases, if the color be so obvious that there can be no mistake about it, the judge may refuse to sentence or may exclude the witness. Still, if the party against whose color the decision may be made should claim to have the question found in the jury, it must apprehend, so be tried. So, I'm going to skip a couple of these. Let's see. All right, we're going to go. So, so with those laws we just read, we just said a lot about what they enacted. Okay, this one. On the 22nd year of October 1740, an act was passed covering the subject of tithes and appealing the above notice action for Queen Anne from the immediate after the 10th of June, which shall be in the year of the Lord 1751. This law refined tithables as all male persons to the age of 16 years and upwards, all Negro, mulatto, and Indian women of the same age, except Indians, tributary to those government and all wives of free Negroes, mulattoes, and Indians, except as before accepted, and accepting such only as the county court or charitable reasons appeared to them, so she feet to excuse. So he's saying that everybody was stipulable at that time, meaning that they had to pay taxes. And so we have these different classifications of race based on color that we call mulatto. So I want to touch on something here. Okay, we're doing a good time. So this is taken from the York County Register of Negroes. So when we talk about mulattoes, because I always thought that just like you were saying with this South Carolina law, because they apparently are looking at it being very light and being very dark, or being a comparison. But when you look at, this is from Virginia. Okay. It has a list of the free Negroes, but they're described as different ways. So I guess it would be, like they said, dependent on a person to look at you and what they wanted to judge you at. But mulatto meant a different thing. Exactly, a mulatto meant a different thing. So when we're looking for our peoples, but let me touch on this first. So I'm gonna read a couple of these. So Judith Banks, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking at Banks, a free Negro, 36 years of age, 5 feet 3 inches high, of a yellowish complexion with a flat nose, wide mouth, and black eyes, with a dimple on her right cheek when she smiles. This was registered on February the 11th, 1803. Okay, so Sulla, otherwise called Sulla Matthews, a dark mulatto woman, aged about 39 or 40, 5'6", has long black hair, black eyes, and has a pleasing countenance when spoken to. Was set free by a deed of emancipation by William Nelson Jr. of Yorktown, registered March 8th, 1803. Well, they write the day in front, so I'm going to start saying it the way they write it, because I'm used to the way that the English write their stuff. Okay, Molly Red Cross, dark mulatto, about 27 years of age, 5 feet high, with woolly hair and a small features. Born of a free woman of Bruton Parish, York County, registered 22nd June 1803. Let's look at this one. Okay, this one says John Red Cross Jr., a small black fellow with 20 years of age, 5 feet 4 inches high, black eyes, fine woolly hair, very slow of speech, born of free parents of Queens Creek in the parish of Bruton, York Registered 16 October 1804. Renewed 20th of April 1821. Because see, we were already into this session where they have to register. So they have to have papers showing it. If somebody come along and want to try to lock them up for being a slave or something like that, they have papers to show that they were a free person. They had to keep them on them all the time. But then they still was going around and kidnapping free people, trying to make them slaves. You can read it over and over again. And I had this website. I lost it because I try to keep so much information, but sometimes it's hard to keep track of when I find these things. So we talked about yellow complexion. This one, Anthony Roberts, a fellow of light complexion, about 22 years, 5 feet 5 inches. He was a short Dutch-built fellow of pleasant countenance and appearance, born of free parents, proved by Thomas Preston, 18 March 1817. So, you know, this Judith Banks, a mulatto woman, about 22, 5 feet 2 and 3/4 height inches, gray eyes, very much freckled. Probably satisfactorily to have been born May 19, 1817. So we have now this one, I would definitely say is probably an Indian woman because of the way that they worded the word colored. Simon Richardson, son of Fanny, a colored, but they spell colored C-O-L-O-U-R-E-D. Woman, freed by Benj Bates, age 25 years, of tawny complexion. You see how they're describing the different people. With 5 feet 6 inches height, pleasant countenance, well spoken, oval face, flat nose, long hair. But see, this is how we get into where these complexions made a difference. And I think that to this day, it still carries over in the minds of people that the lighter that you are, and when we have these products where we're bleaching our skin and lightening our hair, or some people say lightening our hair and relaxing our hair. But you know, these things have been done for a long time, and it becomes like where we pass it down from generation to generation. I recently stopped relaxing my hair, and it's been a struggle because I don't know what to do with my hair. I mean, I've lived my whole life with chemicals in my hair, and it be where I'm almost 50 and have to deal with this stuff. Is like, and this is not no, you know, this ain't no what I would call, what I would have considered at one point to be good hair. But now I consider my hair to be good hair because it protects my head. It's very thick. It's like no other hair. It's not straight and blonde and brunette and all of this stuff. This hair this I would like to know where this hair come from, back to the root of the people that gave me this hair. And so that's why I'm really into this journey of looking for this. But we'll find that you know, we have to go back and ask these questions, or why do we are instilled with what.
So what about the laws that says that it's easier on you if you're considered white or light as white?
Did I read any laws like that? I don't
No.
think I did read it. I don't know. They ain't gonna say no laws like that.
No, you were saying how before, if they, you know, if you're black and you hit a white person, you can be charged. But if you're white and you hit a black person, you wouldn't be charged.
Well, I mean, it's just like the color purple. I mean, they have these laws. I wouldn't be able to find it right here in front of my face. Let's see. But the law was basically that if a white person hit you, you couldn't hit him back because you would go to jail for that. They had the right to hit you. I mean, you think about the color purple and Sophia. The white man hit her. She hit him back. She went to prison
for a long time, and
that was in a South Carolina law. Now I'm not sure if that movie was supposed to be based out of South Carolina, but if that was in fact South Carolina, that was true. That was no lie. So I mean, and slavery was over then, because you could tell they was free people,
right?
And those families, in fact, may have been free people all the time, because it never specified. We're talking about the South, but they've had free people of color in this country probably since it hasn't been documented, because we're talking about the Indians of the Southeast, which were brown-skinned people that they say that they met on the coast when they came here, when the Spaniards came here. So, and those people were different complexions. So they were probably considered to be tawny. But people don't understand that when they think about, we don't remember a lot of this history, but these were colonies. It's only a United States after everything got settled. Because before, when they came in, everybody was grabbing up land, and it was colonies. And the Spaniards they was taking land, right? And they were enslaving the Indian people that were here and shipping them out to different parts of the Caribbean and stuff like that, because they knew how to plant corn. This was the thing that they planted here. And so whenever they bring slaves in from certain places, they have them, because where they go, they know how to do whatever they're doing. So you don't bring in a person to be a brick mason. And I mean, most of them people that knew how to do trades, those were the ones that they were taking to be like the rice planters. Those Africans already knew how to grow rice when they brought them here. So, so those type of things, not in all cases, but a lot of the Africans that they enslaved or brought over here, the African kings, because we read an article, I showed you an article yesterday from the king of Dahomey, when he visited Alabama. He apologized for the African kings,
involvement of the slave trade.
Right, their involvement in the slave trade. So, you know, when we look at that everything is good coming out of Africa, and we all came out of Africa, and, you know, people say, well, they never came for us. They ain't never come for us because some of them sent us over here. So we got to look at that. You know, we look at it as the whole thing was introduced by the so-called white man, but it wasn't, because slavery was going on in Africa. And they were trading. They were trading with these people. They set up ports. They was trading. They was trading with Asia. And it was just a trade thing. And the so-called Africans that were not in their tribe or became enslaved from tribal wars or whatever, they were the ones that those African kings were sending over here, giving them to the British or the Dutch or whatever. And then the Islamics were taking the women over in their part to be concubines and stuff like that. So when we look at this, we have to look at this from a different perspective as a part of removing our, and it's kind of hard to do, because I really can't watch any movies on slavery. I don't watch them at all, because I know that the majority of them is a bunch of propaganda that tries to get us to think a certain way, just like Roots, which we know was a plagiarized movie, and the man stole the movie, and he still played on TV. It should be banned because it's a misconception. Well, a lot of the information is, you know, I mean, if the movie is not real, it's not real. Then, you know, we need to stick with the facts of not a scenario from this man. So let's see. We only got about 5 more minutes because we're keeping these down to 30 minutes. So I wanted to really talk on the part when we're looking for our ancestors, some of the things that we may find in these census things as regards to the thing of mulatto. So because this whole journey of mine has been because I'm looking for my family, in 1910, I found on the census that my grandmothers were listed as black, but they have these little notes, which is OT, which is written in the head of the household. So this is indication of another race. But what is that other race? So they only indicate black because that's all they have is black and white, but it's to indicate OT in this little symbol saying another race.
Right, which means other.
Right.
Okay.
So in 1920, they both are listed as mulatto, which on this census they have mulatto or Negro listed. Mm-hmm. So Others listed living with my grandmothers are all listed as mulatto. So and when I talk with my mother, she remembers her grandmother's Frances complexion. She says she's brown skinned. So she's not light skinned. So that's like what I was like, whoa. So I'm thinking a mulatto means someone really, really like, so it depends, I guess, on where you are. Mulatto, it meant different things. It didn't mean complexion, apparently. So in 1930, they changed black and white mulattoes to be returned to Negro. So if you're black and white, mulattoes will be returned to Negro. So they never long say, they don't say black, they don't say mulatto, they say Negro. See the difference? So, and mixed Indian and Negro are to be returned a Negro. So they didn't remove mulatto in 1930 and made it the Negro. So we've been changed from colored to Negro to African American and black in there somewhere. But they keep changing our race reclassification. And I think that we're the only race of people in these colonies that has constantly had our race specification changed. And we need to understand why that's constantly be done. Why is the so-called African American went from colored to black to Negro to African American? So I'm going to keep on doing my studying and sharing my information with you guys. I hope you enjoy my videos and that you learn something and that you actually do look into some of these records. Google. You'll find some interesting information, and we need to stop looking. I mean, you know, I'm into the African thing. I love the African history, but I've traced my family back to almost the early 1800s. And that's a big feat because you have to learn how to do this. And if you follow everything, well, I'm actually taking a genealogy class under Chief Langley. And if it wasn't for these classes, I wouldn't be as far as I have gotten. I wouldn't understand this information and the betrayal of this information as well as I do. And so I share it with my family because I want them to be able to understand. And I'm sharing it with you because I want you to understand that a lot of things that people write in books are a lot of opinion. And I want to deal with facts and not opinion. So peace and love. I'll see you next time on next video next week. Bye.
Peace and love.